I'm Dan Ridsdale, head of TMT at Edison, and today I'm joined by Phil Reason, Chief Executive Officer of Instem, the AIM-listed provider of IT solutions and services to the life sciences market. Phil, many thanks for coming in today. Looking at your business, there's a number of different elements to your business, and we'll discuss those later. But could you perhaps start by explaining the fundamental role that Instem seeks to play within the life sciences market?
Sure, and Dan, thanks very much for having me today. So life sciences R&D is tremendously complicated, time-consuming and expensive. I guess we've all seen that firsthand over the last 18 months as we've watched pharma companies bring vaccines to market and struggle to bring therapies to market. Our goal is to help those end user providers, those pharma companies, chemical companies, medical device companies, to optimize that lengthy period of R&D. Takes 12 or 13 years to bring a new drug to market. If we can help them reduce that period, if we can help them lower the cost and to improve the quality of what they're putting through their R&D process and their confidence in the regulatory compliance when they submit their requests for approval, then we'll have been making our contribution to that huge endeavor.
Great, thank you. And you segment your business into 4 different areas. So you've got study management, regulatory solutions, in silico solutions, and clinical trial. Could you briefly explain your position and I guess your value proposition within each of those segments?
So Instem's been providing systems to life sciences R&D for over 40 years, and for many of those years what we were providing are solutions in the study management area. This is the area where now, from early stages of discovery through non-clinical development, so all of the things you do in laboratories before you get into humans, and then the early stages of human clinical trials, we're helping to orchestrate the studies that they have to run, manage the day-to-day workflow, the minute-by-minute workflow, help validate data or automatically capture data, help with the statistical analysis of that data, and if it's something that'll be part of a regulatory submission, get that data ready for submission to the FDA. So it's managing a huge swathe of that process across the R&D process for companies around the world. And it's in this area that we estimate that over 50% of the world's drugs on the market have used our systems at some point in their R&D life cycle. So bring us into contact with lots of processes, lots of data. Regulatory solutions is a bit newer. That came maybe 10 years ago. We started providing solutions in this area. It's now got 2 aspects. One is the FDA has a fairly unique, US FDA has a fairly unique process for reviewing submissions, where they want to analyze all of the raw data that is being collected to form their own view on the safety and efficacy of a drug. To be able to do that, they need to get all of that data. Historically, that came on paper. The FDA reviewers typed it all in again into the FDA systems. And now a standard has been created called Send, where you can send the FDA all of that data electronically, and then they can spend their time reviewing, not rekeying data. And in the regulatory solutions area, we provide technology that helps map data from the form it was collected to the form the FDA needed. And we do that with software, and we actually also offer a technology-enabled outsourced service in that area where we use our own software. The pharma companies and the contract research organizations that do a lot of these studies send their data to us. We put it through the technology and send the submission-ready data sets back to them to send to the FDA. The other bit of this part, this area of regulatory solutions, is our regulatory information management. And there we provide IT that help people once they get their regulated products approved. So it could be drugs or medical devices or veterinary medicines. We help them, the IT helps them put together the submissions in every new country that they want to get marketing approval for those regulated products. And if you're a drug company with hundreds or thousands of products that you're marketing in maybe 150 countries around the world, having some IT that helps with that is really useful. I'll cover clinical trial accelerations before in silico solutions, because a fundamental part of our thesis is that long period of drug development, 12 or 13 years, the potential to be able to significantly reduce that. There's a belief within the industry, and Instem supports that belief, that if we can get access to all of the data from discovery, or large volumes of data from discovery, non-clinical development, clinical development, and then derive insights from that data by looking at it, that you can remove some of the time-consuming laboratory and human trial processes and replace that by predictive analytics, so looking at that large volume of data and deriving insights. Until an acquisition, we did nothing in late-stage clinical, and clinical trial acceleration solutions came with an acquisition that gives us great understanding to that late-stage clinical trial data. We help our clients manage the process of doing the statistical analysis of late-stage clinical trial data. That then gives us sort of complete coverage from study management right through from discovery to late-stage clinical, gives us an understanding of that complex data. And that enables us in our fourth area in silico solutions to bring technologies together and talented staff who know how to aggregate this data, derive insights from it, and to provide solutions that have these predictive analytics algorithms that can work out how to generate useful insight from large volumes of data. So they're the four areas. They all rely on a tremendously talented team of people at Instem that have been doing this work for decades, and really it's only the talent of those people that allow us to be as successful as we've been.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And then turning towards market dynamics, can you talk about the overall demand and competitive landscape within the life sciences market?
So overall demand in life sciences R&D has been tremendous over the last 7 or 8 years. We look at one particular annual survey of the amount of activity going on within pharma R&D, and that's been growing sort of 5 to 8 or 9% per year for 7 or 8 years. And the more R&D that's going on, the more demand there is for our solutions. In terms of the competitive environment, life sciences R&D has invested in technology for many years. For many of the processes, without technology, you really can't do the science. Some of this is very complicated work. We have a philosophy of having leading solutions in our portfolio. The pharma industry, which is a big part of the life sciences broader life sciences R&D market, has had a tendency for forever really to buy the leading solutions in the market, and our observation is that if you don't have world leading solutions, your market share will be considerably lower than the leading provider. And if we're to be able to deliver what we want in terms of reducing how long it takes to bring drugs to market, other regulated life sciences products to market, it's important that we have the leading market share, generates the highest revenue, allows us to reinvest what we generate in profit and cash flow from those activities in the product, and continually keeping ourselves at the forefront. So there are established competitors in all of the areas we operate. There tends to be 2 or 3 companies that differentiate themselves from others. Many of the areas are fairly niche, covering a particular area of the science. And generally, we have competitors that we've known for years. They know our strengths, we know their strengths. Everybody tends to do a decent job. Products and services are pretty sticky. People don't switch from one to the other very often. But fortunately, because of this philosophy we have of leading solutions, we manage to keep ourselves ahead of the pack. That virtuous cycle of generating the greatest revenue and the greatest profit and reinvesting it continually slightly widens the capability gap between us and our competitors. So it's a great place to operate. The competitive suppliers, there's friendly competition, generally speaking, and good at times. Co-opetition. We find ways to collaborate with some of our competitors as well as competing with them.
Thanks. And you touched on the niche competitors in the last question. M&A is a component of your strategy and your investment case. Can you talk through the characteristics that you look for in your targets, and also the synergies that Instem brings to the table when you acquire a new business?
So because R&D is so complicated, and IT has often been a component, as new pieces of science emerge over the last 40 or 50 years, the industry has looked for IT suppliers to support them. Unfortunately, they've not exhibited very good governance over the years in doing that, and they've gone to small companies rather than established ones. And what that's created is a very fragmented IT landscape of providers out there. The pharma industry, life sciences R&D industry are regretting that now, and they would like to see a smaller number of providers providing a broader breadth of solutions. And Instem's in a fortunate position that as one of the leading providers, the industry looks to Instem and some others in other complementary areas to be part of that consolidation, the aggregation of those smaller companies. But we're looking for businesses that are almost always already profitable. They've already got a market leading position globally, or if it isn't a market leading position globally, something that we believe can get there within a short period of time, a year or two. Maybe it's a business that's developed regional strength. Maybe they're based in Europe and they're really strong in Europe, but they don't have a presence elsewhere. And that's what Instem can bring to them, a global infrastructure where we can market, sell, service, deliver, support the clients globally. So we're looking for business that have got a good market position. They're already profitable, so we can buy them at a multiple of EBITDA, hopefully, rather than a multiple of revenue. Businesses that will be accretive in the first full year after acquisition, hopefully even sooner than that. And businesses that should be able to generate a return on capital employed of at least 10% straight away, and quickly get to 15% plus, which is where the return on capital is for the group as a whole.
Great. And in that context, can you discuss your two most recent acquisitions, so The Edge and DWise?
Sure. So The Edge is a business that focuses in discovery study management. So study management at the early stage of R&D. This is an area that Instem didn't already have an offering in discovery. We had some clients that tried to bend our study management solutions that are in the next stage, the non-clinical development stage, to use them in discovery. And our solutions really weren't suitable. Once you get into the regulatory stages of development, there's a lot more constraints deliberately around the systems to make sure that the laboratory experiments are following the regulated processes. Those constraints corresponded to a lack of agility and flexibility, which is what you need in discovery. So The Edge was a small business. It had developed a great portfolio of software solutions. It's a 100% software business, now selling on a 100% subscription model and developing a sort of a leading position in some particular types of discovery studies. And they have a philosophy of using their generic platform to build a really compelling solution in a particular study type, getting momentum in that area. And once that's proven out, then using their generic platform to move into another study type. And we really like that model. It's a great team. All but one of them were based in the UK, and they typify what I was talking about before, generated a fantastic position in the UK and in Western Europe, very little penetration in North America, the biggest market for what we do, no penetration in Asia. And so we can bring our global team to help them grow. Excuse me. DWise, they're at the other end of R&D. And I mentioned this before. They bring us strength in late stage clinical trials, have two components to their offer. They provide or help pharma companies produce their statistical computing environment. So it's the day-to-day tool that their data management staff, their biostatisticians use to analyze clinical trial data. They're the market leader globally by some way. They've provided solutions of this type for 18 or 19 of the top 20 pharma companies over the last 10 years. The other half of their business, or other part, it's not quite half, is addressing a new requirement where if you have your drug approved by the European Medicines Agency or Health Canada, you are obliged to anonymize the clinical trial data and provide it for wider industry research. So it's a quid pro quo for getting that approval. And you need to anonymize that data because the subjects that were on those clinical trial studies gave their permission for their data to be used just within that study. They didn't give permission for it to be used for wider research. So you need to hide the fact that Fred was on that trial. Right. And to do that across hundreds of thousands of clinical trial data sets, which might exist on a large study, millions and millions of data points, you need some IT to help you with that process. And DWise have a software platform that helps with that data anonymization process. And like Instem, they either license the technology for people to do that themselves, or the pharma company can send all of that clinical trial data to us, and we will provide that anonymization as a service, and we'll send the data back to them ready to submit to the EMA or Health Canada. Again, it's a business that's a market leader in its space, profitable, growing, and a really tremendous addition to the Instem business.
Great, thanks. And turning towards the financials, organic growth in 2020 was 3%. But you look within that, and SaaS and recurring revenues both grew much more rapidly at a good double-digit rate, actually. So when you factor in synergies from acquisitions and the increased predictability of those recurring revenues, is it reasonable for us to expect an acceleration in organic growth as a result of those factors?
It is, and we tend to give some sort of high-level guidance for growth in the 4 business areas over time. Obviously there's analyst guidance out there for the next few years at a more granular level, but study management, we've said expect mid-single digits revenue growth, regulatory solutions, high single digits, maybe into low double digits, clinical trial acceleration, around the same, and then in Silico solutions, where people have this huge appetite to leverage data, low double digits and above growth. And overall, we expect that to average out somewhere around the high single digits revenue growth year on year. And yes, really delighted about that recurring revenue growth. And we're on this journey of transitioning a large portfolio of existing clients who've bought perpetual licenses and deployed our software on their own data centers, moving to our SaaS deployment. And over time, that's driving up a disproportionate growth in SaaS, which is fantastic. And that's both for existing clients and new clients. And as people know, as you go through that transition, you lose the one-off benefit of perpetual licenses, but you get that higher quality of earnings in SaaS. So yes, that held back growth a little bit in 2020. But for all the right reasons, and we wouldn't have switched any of that SaaS revenue back to perpetual license just for higher revenue growth for a single year.
Good stuff. Phil, many thanks for joining me. Thanks.
Dan, thanks very much. Great to speak to you.